The Empire's miscalculations. Zarkali Dominion had crushed 29 worlds before Earth. They were an empire of terrifying power and ancient technology. They flew ships as large as mountains and used weapons that could melt rock into rivers. They believed their victory over Earth would be the easiest one yet, so they laughed when they saw humans preparing trenches and loading bullet-based rifles into rusted trucks. To the Zarkali, this was not war, this was cleanup. Their fleet circled Earth like vultures around a corpse waiting to strike the moment. Their generals gave the order inside the flagship. A high-ranking commander named Vornik watched the human news broadcasts with amusement. He saw humans shouting into screens, rallying behind their leaders. He sneered at the sight of Earth's nations uniting for the first time in decades. He did not see courage in those speeches. He saw desperation behind him. His officers joked about how soft humans were, how they would run. The moment the first Zarkali boots hit the soil, one laughed that the humans would surrender. After the first plasma strike, one even said perhaps the humans would offer them gifts. To avoid pain, the Emperor of the Zarkali sent a message across the fleet. Prepare for landing, remove all resistance, ground invasion begins at dawn in the early light of day. Zarkali dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere. They were shaped like daggers and burned white trails across the sky. Thousands of elite Zarkali ground troops marched from their ships in perfect formation. Their armor shimmered with a black chrome surface, their faces hidden behind red-tinted visors. The world watched through shaky camera feeds as they advanced on human soil. The aliens landed in major cities expecting fear. Instead, they met silence, too quiet, too calm. The first major city they entered was Chicago, but what they found was not a battle. It was a trap. Streets were empty, windows shattered, buildings crumbled, but there were no people, no soldiers. Zarkali units moved block by block, scanning with heat sensors. But the enemy was not above or around, it was below. The ground erupted as human soldiers burst from sewer hatches and underground tunnels. Homemade explosives set off in every alley. Rifle fire echoed off the walls and grenades rolled under alien legs. The Zarkali screamed in shock. They had trained for open combat, not this chaos. Their armor could take a plasma blast, but it cracked under a steel crowbar. Their sensors jammed by old Earth tech. Their lines fell apart as human fighters moved like ghosts, using rooftops, sewers, and crumbling buildings for cover. The aliens had numbers, but not strategy. Their AI commanders gave slow commands while human squads made instant decisions, adapting every second. A Zarkali sergeant named Krezer tried to regroup his unit in an abandoned train station, but the humans were already there. One man threw a Molotov into the tunnel and another rolled a tire bomb. Beneath their feet, flames and shrapnel tore through the alien soldiers, and Krezer barely crawled out, wounded, confused, breathing heavy under his helmet. He looked up, and for the first time saw not primitives, not weaklings, but warriors, ones that did not fear death, ones that embraced it. Zarkali regrouped at their landing zones, expecting support, but the humans had already planted mines along the escape routes. Every ship that tried to lift off exploded midair. Anti-aircraft fire hit them from hidden silos and rooftops built decades ago, then forgotten by the world, but not by its people, not by the humans who remembered every stone, every tunnel, every shadow of their homeland. By nightfall, the aliens had lost over 2,000 soldiers in what they thought would be an easy operation. They did not take a single human city. They did not even reach the center of one. The Zarkali High Command was furious. They called it a failure of leadership, a rare setback. One general claimed it was a fluke that the next assault would break them. But a few Zarkali officers had started whispering behind closed doors this was no fluke. This was Earth from orbit. Vornik watched the battle reports, his smile gone, his eyes narrowed as video feeds showed human children carrying rifles, farmers laying traps, veterans leading ambushes. He could not understand it. They should have broken, they should have begged, but instead they bled and bit and burned until they pushed his elite troops back into the shadows. In a quiet room aboard the ship, a low-ranking scout captain named Tarvik reviewed the footage again and again. He did not speak to mock them. He watched because something inside him twisted as he saw the way humans fought. They did not fight for glory or empire or expansion. They fought for each other, for the dirt beneath their feet, for every ruined street and broken home. He did not feel pride for his people. He felt fear. First blood, human breath. Zarkali Dominion believed in order and clean victories and swift conquests. They trained their soldiers for planetary invasions, where resistance broke within hours and the defeated begged for mercy. But Earth was not following the script. Earth was rewriting it with fire, with grit, with a fury the Zarkali had never faced before. After the disaster in Chicago, the Dominion regrouped in the Colorado region, believing they had learned enough from their first encounter to adjust their tactics. They brought heavier weapons, stronger armor, and newer scanning units. They believed no human would dare face their forces in open ground again. And they were right, humans did not face them in open ground. They came from the forests, from the canyons, from the skies, and from the dirt beneath their boots. Zarkali battalions entered a wide valley. Surrounded by pine-covered mountains, it was the perfect place to trap what they thought were scattered bands of human militia. Their drones flew overhead scanning for life signs, but found nothing. Their armored vehicles moved slow and heavy, pressing forward expecting fear. What they found instead was silence again, not peaceful, but dangerous, a silence filled with waiting breath, with hidden eyes, and with the beat of hearts ready for war. Suddenly from the trees a barrage of explosives came down, not from modern launchers, but from slings built from car parts, farm equipment, and steel rope. The projectiles were crude, but packed with shrapnel fire and rage. The first line of Zarkali tanks erupted in flame, their shields overloaded by sheer kinetic force. As humans emerged from the high cliffs above, rifles slung across their chests, eyes focused, calm and merciless, they picked off alien commanders first, knowing their orders would collapse once leadership fell one by one. The Zarkali vehicles were trapped in the narrow valley, unable to retreat, unable to advance. Smoke filled the air as old Earth artillery, hidden in the hills, opened fire. Weapons once used in Earth's past wars now aimed skyward to shatter alien dropships before they could land reinforcements. The Dominion command center panicked, cutting communication to the valley forces to avoid broadcasting the defeat, but it was too late. Every Zarkali who stepped into the valley met human fire. Back aboard the flagship, Tarvik watched in disbelief as feeds came in showing Zarkali troops lying in retreat, blood pooling under their armor. The humans fought without hesitation. They aimed for weak spots. They worked in squads, but even more dangerous, they adapted faster than the Dominion's machines could recalculate. Tarvik noted one group in particular, a human squad of only 7 fighters holding an entire cliffside against 30 alien soldiers. They moved without speaking. One threw explosives, one covered the ridge, one climbed above the trees and jumped straight onto a Zarkali mech, stabbing wires into its joint to fry its power core. Within seconds the machine exploded, sending 2 aliens flying down. The Ravana studied the face of one soldier, a woman with mud across her cheeks and blood on her hands. Her expression was not angry, it was focused, calm, sharp, like a blade honed through years of pain and loss, and she never once looked away from her target, not even as plasma bolts scorched the rock beside her head. The Dominion lost 2 more battalions in Colorado before ordering a full retreat back to their orbital base. Only a few transports made it through the storm of missiles and railguns launched from hidden silos around the Rockies. Some of those silos had not been opened in 50 years, and yet they worked perfectly, as if the Earth had been waiting for this moment, for this enemy. In the diplomatic chambers of the Zarkali fleet, Admiral Yezer addressed the remaining commanders. His voice cold and stern, he accused Earth of barbarism, of dishonorable tactics and low technology. He called them scavengers and savages and said they would pay for every Zarkali death. But in the quiet of his own chamber he smashed a console against the wall. He could not deny it. They were losing, and worse, they were losing to a planet that should have fallen in a day. Tarvik sent a message to his superior, a private warning saying the humans were not what they expected, that they should negotiate, that Earth had more power than sensors could measure. But he received no reply. The High Command had no intention of retreating. Their pride was thicker than their armor. Meanwhile, in the rubble of Denver, human soldiers gathered not to celebrate, but to mourn their dead. They carried the wounded on stretchers made from street signs. They marked the fallen with broken helmets, candles lit beside them. A child, no older than 13, helped dig a trench with a shattered shovel beside men 3 times his age. Not a single soldier told him to stop, because on Earth every hand was needed, every soul mattered. Above them in the gray sky, pieces of alien wreckage burned like falling stars as mothers whispered stories to their children, and fathers kissed bloodied cheeks before walking back into the fight. They were not warriors by choice, they were survivors by necessity, and the Zarkali were beginning to see that the ground they walked on did not belong to empires or fleets. It belonged to the humans who breathed it, who bled on it, and who would die before giving it up. Earth was not just fighting back. Earth was setting the battlefield on fire and daring the stars to come closer. The war turns. The Zarkali Dominion was used to dominance. Their war doctrine was built on intimidation, overwhelming force, and swift submission. But Earth was proving something they had never faced before. Earth was unpredictable. Earth was stubborn. And Earth would not kneel after the failure in the Colorado Valley. The Zarkali War Council held an emergency summit aboard their capital dreadnought 3 moons away from Earth. The Emperor himself attended, his robe draped in shimmering silver, his eyes full of silent rage. One by one commanders made excuses. Some blamed weather interference. Some said the terrain was too chaotic. Some claimed humans used dishonorable methods. But none could deny the losses. General Zelvok, one of the youngest and most aggressive commanders, demanded a full planetary purge. He wanted to launch kinetic bombardments from orbit, shatter cities, scorch the ground until only dust remained. But the Emperor raised one clawed hand and silenced the room. He declared Earth must fall by ground force. Only for their victory to mean something, to be remembered across the stars, it must be earned, not by buttons and bombs but by boots and bloodback. On Earth, humans were changing as well. In basements, under shattered homes and mountain hideouts and forest clearings, new leaders were rising. Some were retired soldiers, some were mechanics, others were students turned warriors, all united by a common oath: protect the planet, fight for every inch, die if they must, but never surrender. In one such outpost, beneath the ruins of a destroyed school, a human engineer named Marcus Reyes worked on a captured Zarkali drone. He had no lab, no equipment, only his mind, his fingers, and a broken console. Using scraps from wrecked alien armor, he managed to bypass the drone's security, not to control it, but to understand it, learn from it, steal from it. Soon other engineers across the world began doing the same, using old laptops, car batteries, and even microwave parts to reverse engineer alien systems. Within days, human strike teams began using their own version of Zarkali tech shields, powered by hacked energy cores, rail cannons built into trucks, armor patched together from alien plates and human Kevlar. The results were ugly, crude, terrifying, but they worked, and that was enough. In the ruins of old Detroit, a massive Zarkali force marched in, expecting ruins. They found resistance instead, not just soldiers but civilians with jury-rigged weapons, drones controlled by teenagers from rooftops, old tanks pulled from museums and retrofitted with fusion cores. Explosions echoed through the streets, not from clean energy bombs but from rage given shape and threat. Zarkali adapted slowly. They were not used to fighting an enemy that changed with every battle. Their machines calculated probabilities, but humans moved with emotion, instinct, fury. They attacked from angles no algorithm could predict. They used terrain like a weapon. They set their own cities on fire to blind scanners, lured troops into flooded tunnels, and collapsed bridges to trap armored columns. And Zarkali commander, known for cold efficiency, ordered a night raid into what was once Boston, thinking darkness would favor them. But the humans owned the dark. They painted their faces, they moved in silence, they used sound traps and infrared decoys. The aliens were slaughtered by ghosts of men who knew the layout of every sewer, every basement, every rooftop inside the fleet. Tarvik watched the reports. He recorded patterns, he studied timelines. He saw something the others refused to accept. Earth was not losing, Earth was learning, and each human death made the survivors smarter, stronger, harder to kill. They were evolving mid-war, adapting faster than any species ever recorded. He sent another report, warning again that the longer the war continued, the more dangerous humans would become. He said the Dominion was no longer fighting soldiers, they were fighting nature itself. But again, no one listened. Meanwhile, deep in the Amazon jungle, a group of human scientists and former astronauts worked on an experimental signal transmitter. Their goal was simple: if they could hijack a Zarkali relay, they could broadcast to other species across the stars. They could tell the galaxy what was happening, not as a plea for help, but as a warning. Earth stands, Earth fights, Earth does not fall. They succeeded, and for 10 full minutes their message echoed through subspace frequencies used by traders, mercenaries, and explorers across the outer rims. Images of Zarkali ships burning, of human soldiers standing over alien wreckage, of cities in ruin yet unbroken, spread like wildfire. Some laughed, some cheered, and some began to whisper, perhaps the Zarkali were not so mighty after all. Back on Earth, the fighting reached a fever pitch. The Zarkali launched their largest coordinated assault on 3 continents, simultaneously using orbital support and precision landings. They expected to finally break the human lines. Instead, they found each city had become a fortress. Civilians fought beside soldiers, elders passed down wartime knowledge from books and memory. Even children carried messages and supplies under sniper cover. In one brutal engagement in the African highlands, a Zarkali general was captured alive by a group of farmers who had never held rifles before yet had outmaneuvered his elite scouts. Tied and bleeding, he was brought before a young woman with dirt on her face and pain in her eyes. She looked at him not with hate, but with disappointment. You came to conquer us, she said, but you do not even understand what you are fighting. Fourth War was no longer about victory. The war had become a mirror, reflecting the soul of every species involved, and the Zarkali were finding nothing but emptiness in their reflection, while humans found strength in theirs, forged in fire. Bound By loss and driven by something no empire could measure, Night Hunters' darkness fell over Earth. Not just in the sky but in the spirits of the Zarkali Dominion. Their ships still hovered above the planet, their command centers still pulsed with data. Their soldiers still marched in lines. But something had changed, something deep inside the minds of the invaders, a quiet fear that grew stronger every night, a whisper spreading across camps and barracks. Never fight humans in the dark. Humans had begun to use night not as a hindrance but as a weapon in itself. They moved like shadows with faces covered in black paint, eyes shining with focus. Every raid was faster, every strike more precise. They attacked supply lines, ambushed patrols, dismantled watchtowers, and vanished before alarms could finish sounding. Zarkali's soldiers started fearing the sunset. They begged for daytime shifts, requested more lights, asked for thermal gear. But nothing helped, nothing saw what the human warriors became when the stars came out in the mountains of Eastern Europe. One elite Zarkali unit was deployed to flush out what their commanders called a minor resistance pocket. They moved silently through a ruined village, torches in hand, motion sensors active, scanning every wall, every corner. They found no signs of life until a small flame appeared, a single match lit inside a church, then vanished. The unit approached slowly, weapons raised, the door creaked open and nothing was inside. No bodies, no humans, just one sentence written on the floor in scorched metal: "We see in the dark." Suddenly, the bells of the old church rang, deafening echo smashing through the air, and from the rooftops the humans came, their boots silent, their movements flawless. They wore cloaks made from scavenged tech that masked sound and heat, their blades curved and sharpened from broken armor, their rifles modified for close quarters. Within seconds, the Zarkali unit was reduced to half screaming as they fired wildly into shadows where no one stood. Only one soldier survived, crawling back through snow, blood pooling beneath him. When asked what happened, he spoke only one sentence: "They hunted us like animals." Back aboard the orbiting command ship, the Emperor ordered new protocols: restrict night deployments, limit ground movement during dark hours, double all scanning patterns, and create new drones built specifically for night combat. Yet none of these worked. The drones were hacked mid-flight, some turned on their own troops, others were found dangling from trees with human flags tied to their sensor. Starvek, the scout captain, watched from a dark corner of the observation deck. His reports ignored, his suggestions discarded. But he kept watching, he kept learning. Unlike the others, he saw the truth, and that truth terrified him. Humans were not creatures of comfort, they were creatures of chaos, and they thrived in places where others hesitated. They did not follow rules, they did not march in lines. They broke the script and wrote their own with blood and dust and ash. During a failed operation near the ruins of Sol, Tarvik was sent to observe a human prison facility, recently recaptured by Zarkali troops. He found walls scorched but intact, strange carvings left in the stone floors, and one remaining prisoner, a human medic chained to the wall, covered in bruises, yet sitting upright with a steady gaze. Tarvik approached, curious. The medic looked at him and spoke first. "You are not all the same," he said. "I saw one of you hesitate. I saw one of you bury the dead, not just your own, ours too." Was that you? Tarvik froze. He had done that once after a failed patrol. He had come across a burned village, buried the dead silently to clear his mind. He never told anyone, but this man, this human, had seen it, remembered it, now spoke to him without hatred, only weariness. "Why do you still fight?" Tarvik asked, genuinely confused. "Why not surrender?" The human smiled. "Because this is our home, because we love what we protect, and love burns brighter than furthest." Words followed Tarvik as he returned to command, his heart now in conflict. He watched as more soldiers were shipped down to Earth, their eyes empty, their spirits cracked. They were not warriors anymore, they were targets. The morale of the Dominion was breaking, not because they lacked power, but because they lacked purpose. Across the planet, humans continued their nightly operations, striking command posts, freeing prisoners, stealing weapons, and leaving messages, not threats, not insults, but promises. "We will never stop, we will never run, we are the Darken." Night in the jungles of Southeast Asia, a Dominion base lit with towers and drones and floodlights was reduced to silence in under 3 hours. No explosions, no sirens, just lights going out one by one. The last footage from a security feed showed a young human walking calmly through the gates, eyes glowing in the moonlight, lips whispering something. Only one word was captured on the audio: freedom. The Empire had never faced this before, not just resistance, but resilience, not just combat, but belief. And the deeper they dug into Earth, the more they found a people who had learned to live in darkness and rise from it again and again. And again. Round zero, human resolve. Its Zarkali Dominion believed that firepower and technology would be enough to crush any resistance, but Earth proved them wrong again and again. This time the battle was set in the heart of what was once New York City. The Zarkali called it Ground Zero, a place they planned to make an example, a final show of strength, to break the human spirit, but they underestimated the human resolve, and the lengths they would go to defend their home city was a maze of ruins, and shattered glass, twisted steel, and burning rubble, but to humans it was home. Each broken street and toppled building was a memory, a story, a battlefield. Every corner held secrets, and every shadow hid a warrior deep beneath the surface in the labyrinth of subways, tunnels, and abandoned bunkers. Elite human ground units trained in urban and underground warfare prepared for the coming storm. These fighters were unlike any others. They knew the city like the back of their hands. Their movements were swift, silent, and deadly. As the Zarkali forces moved into the city, their heavy plasma tanks rumbled through cracked streets. Their drones flew overhead scanning for resistance, but they could not see what lurked below. The human elite units slipped through the sewers and ventilation shafts unseen and unheard. They set charges under fuel depots and communication towers. Their bombs exploded with violent precision, sending shockwaves through alien ranks, causing panic and confusion above ground. The battle raged with explosions lighting the dark skies. Alien troops fought with desperation, but every inch they gained was lost in the tunnels below as a massive plasma cannon aimed to level a city block. The humans struck their secret weapon, a network of underground mines, triggered simultaneously, destroying the weapon and trapping hundreds of alien soldiers beneath tons of rubble. Zarkali commanders watched in horror as their plans crumbled. Their elite troops were falling into traps one by one, their advanced armor useless against close-quarters combat and guerrilla tactics. They could not understand how humans could fight so fiercely, so intelligently, with so much heart. The scout Captain Tarvik observed from a distant ship, his respect for the enemy growing, while his feared Penadoni squad of human fighters led by a veteran named Elena moved with deadly grace through a flooded subway line. They communicated without words, their bond forged in countless battles, each member trusting the others with their lives. They disabled security systems, hacked alien tech, and captured civilians, all while evading patrols and setting ambushes in a moment of fierce combat. Elena faced a Zarkali warlord in the tunnels, their weapons clashing in sparks and fury. The warlord underestimated her skill, but she fought with the strength of 1,000 souls, her aim unerring and her will unbreakable. With a final strike, she disabled his armor and forced him to surrender, a rare sight. In this brutal war, the captured warlord was brought to a hidden human command center deep underground. There the humans debated what to do with their prisoner. Some wanted to kill him, others wanted to learn from him. Elena stood firm. She believed understanding the enemy was key to survival, and that mercy could be a weapon too. In the quiet moments, she saw the warlord not as a monster, but as a soldier trapped by his own pride. Meanwhile, above the city, the skies darkened with the smoke of burning buildings. The sound of battle echoed endlessly, but in the underground command centers, human leaders planned their next moves with calm determination. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to reclaim their world, to rebuild it on their own terms. Starvik sent urgent messages to his high command warning that this battle was different than the others. The humans were not just defending, they were attacking. They were using the city itself as a weapon. Their resilience was unmatched, and if the Dominion did not rethink its strategy soon, the war would be lost. But pride blinded the leaders. They believed more firepower would solve everything. They ignored the warnings. They sent more troops, more tanks, more ships to drop soldiers into the slaughter, and yet the humans did not break. In one final desperate assault, the Zarkali unleashed a wave of plasma strikes aimed at wiping out the human command centers. But the humans anticipated this. They evacuated civilians and used underground tunnels to move unseen. They struck back with everything they had, a symphony of resistance made from courage, sacrifice, and unyielding hope. When the smoke finally cleared, the ruins of the city stood silent, but the Zarkali forces were broken. Their numbers shattered, their spirit crushed. The humans had won the battle of ground zero, not through superior technology, but through sheer willpower and love for their home. Tarvik looked out over the battlefields from his ship and felt a shift inside him. The humans had shown him something no data could capture, something he had never understood until now. They did not fight because they were strong, they fought because they were determined not to lose. What made them human? The final stand. The war had dragged on longer than anyone expected. The Zarkali Dominion was bruised, but still powerful. Their pride was shattered, but their will remained unbroken. Earth was scarred and weary, but the human spirit burned brighter than ever. The final stand was set on the vast plains of what used to be Central Asia, where the last major Zarkali force gathered to launch a desperate assault on the heart of human resistance. The aliens brought everything they had: plasma tanks, the newest assault mechs, waves of infantry, supported by orbital bombardments. They believed this final push would break the humans once and for all, but they did not understand the strength. Born of years of loss, the determination forged in fire and blood, human General Arya stood atop a hill overlooking the battlefield. Her uniform was worn, her face smeared with dirt and sweat, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She rallied her troops with words not of fear, but of hope. They were fighting for their homes, for their families, for every broken street, and every ruined building. They would not give an inch, not today, not ever. Underground bunkers and fortified trenches stretched across the plains. Like veins pulsing with life, human soldiers manned every position, ready to defend, to attack, to die if necessary. Their weapons were a mix of old Earth technology and salvaged alien gear patched together with ingenuity and resolve. Their vehicles rumbled through the mud, carrying reinforcements and supplies, every convoy protected by squads trained to fight in the harshest conditions. Zarkali launched their assault as the sun rose, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Their plasma cannons fired relentlessly, lighting up the sky with deadly bursts. Their mechs stomped forward, crushing everything in their path, but the humans fought back with everything they had. They used mines and explosives to disable tanks. They hacked drones to turn them against their own forces, and they fought in close quarters, where alien technology was less effective. Tarvik watched the battle unfold. From his command ship, torn between duty and doubt, he saw the cost of pride and stubbornness. He saw the bravery and unity that no weapon could break. In the thick of the fight, he risked his life to deliver a message to the High Command to urge retreat, to save what remained. But his pleas were ignored, branded traitorous, and silence. Amid the chaos, a small human unit led by Captain Samir moved through the battlefield with deadly purpose. Their mission was to infiltrate the Zarkali command center and disable their communication systems. The journey was perilous, their path filled with mines, gunfire, and enemy patrols. But they pressed on, driven by the hope that ending the command would turn the tide. Samir's team moved through the shadows, using tunnels and abandoned buildings to avoid detection. Their training and trust in each other kept them alive as they reached the command center, a towering structure bristling with antennas and guarded by elite troops. The team coordinated a precise assault, disabling shields, hacking security systems, and planting charges before slipping away unnoticed. As the command center went dark, confusion spread among the Zarkali forces. Their coordination faltered, their morale dropped. The humans seized the moment, launching a counterattack, pushing the aliens back step by step. The battle became a desperate struggle for survival, each side fighting not just for victory, but for existence. General Arya ordered the final phase of the assault, a massive artillery barrage, combined with ground forces closing in. The aliens were trapped between fire and fury, their lines crumbling, their soldiers surrendering or falling in battle. The battlefield was a symphony of destruction and courage, a testament to the unyielding human spirit. In the midst of the carnage, Tarvik made a choice. He deserted his post, risking everything to help a group of wounded humans trapped in a collapsed tunnel. His actions were discovered and he was captured by his own people, but in that moment, he felt free from the chains of blind loyalty. He had seen the truth and he would carry it with him, no matter the cost. As the dust settled, the last Zarkali forces either surrendered or fled back to their ships. Many were wounded, broken, and ashamed, but some carried with them a new understanding of humanity and the cost of pride. The humans had won not because they had the strongest weapons, but because they had the strongest hearts, the deepest bonds, and the fiercest love for their home. General Arya addressed the survivors, her voice steady and proud. You came to conquer us, but we are the ground beneath your feet, the fire in your veins, and the storm in your skies. We did not just fight for survival, we fought for honor, for family, and for the future of all who call this world home. Tarvik walked among the ruins beside a human medic who had saved his life. He saw children playing among the rubble, laughter rising above the silence, a new beginning born from the ashes. The war had ended, but the lessons remained clear. Never underestimate the power of love, the strength of unity, and the will to never surrender. Ashes and honor. The war was over, but the scars remained. The cities were in ruins, the forests blackened, the rivers choked with ash. Yet the human spirit was unbroken in the quiet that followed the final battle. The survivors gathered to rebuild not just their homes, but their lives. Their wounds ran deep, but their hearts beat strong with hope and determination. Across the battered landscape, the Zarkali dominion lay shattered, their empire fractured by defeat and shame. Stories of Earth's resistance spread through the stars, warning other civilizations never to underestimate the humans below, never to fight them on the ground, where their will was unbreakably. Scout Captain Tarvik walked slowly beside the human medic who had once saved him. His armor was battered, his hands scarred, yet his eyes held a new light. The medic smiled softly and said, the ground beneath us may be broken, But the roots run deep. You taught me that even enemies can find honor together. They visited ruined towns where children played in the shadows of fallen. Towers where families planted seeds and burned earth where the air was thick with promise. And new life. Tarvik saw the strength of a people who had lost everything, but refused to lose themselves. He realized that the humans had won not because of weapons or tactics, but because of love for each other. And their home survivors held ceremonies to honor the fallen, their voices rising in song and memory, their stories told of sacrifice, bravery, and the bonds that had held them together through the darkest nights. The humans had fought not for conquest, but for the chance to live freely, for the chance to build a future on their own terms. Tsarkali, who remained, found refuge among those they once called enemies. They walked as humbled guests, learning the meaning of mercy and friendship in a world they had tried to destroy. Tarvik found peace not in victory, but in understanding, in the hope that someday enemies could become allies. The stars shone above the healed earth. The humans looked to the future with cautious optimism. They rebuilt their cities stronger and smarter, their technology blending old earth ingenuity with lessons learned from the stars. They trained new generations not just to fight, but to protect, to cherish, and to remember the price of freedom. General Arya stood on a hill overlooking the horizon, her gaze steady and proud. She spoke to those gathered beneath her. The next leaders, the next fighters, the next keepers of Earth's legacy. Remember, she said, this war was never about defeating an enemy. It was about defending what makes us human, about holding onto the ground beneath our feet and the love in our hearts. The world was quiet now, but the memory of battle lingered like a shadow in a light, a reminder of how far they had come and how far they still must go. The humans had faced annihilation and had risen stronger, their story a beacon of hope for all who believed in courage, unity, and the power of love. Tarvik looked to the sky one last time before turning away, his journey from enemy to friend complete. He knew the war had changed him, and the universe forever. Earth was more than a planet, it was a symbol of promise, and a warning to those who dared threaten the indomitable human spirit. Dawn of a new era. War was over, yet the echoes of battle still hummed beneath the quiet of Earth's healing lands. The sky stretched wide and clear above forests regrowing over scarred earth, and rivers flowing strong once more. The people who survived stood tall and proud, their faces marked by hardship, but glowing with the fierce light of hope. They were not just survivors, they were creators, builders of a future, forged from ashes and dreams. In villages and cities alike, voices rose in laughter and song as children played freely, their eyes reflecting the boundless promise of tomorrow. The broken roads were paths to new beginnings, and the ruins had become monuments to endurance. Every hand worked together, planting seeds, building homes, and weaving stories of courage that would be told for generations. Tarvik walked among these people not as a conqueror, but as a witness to the power of love and unity that had defeated even the mightiest empire. He remembered the fear, the battles, the loss, but most of all he remembered the faces of those who never gave up, those who fought with hearts blazing brighter than any weapon. He felt a deep peace, knowing that the greatest victory was not in destruction but in the bonds formed from pain and understanding. The humans had taught him that strength was not measured by power alone, but by the courage to protect what one loves, and the willingness to stand together in the face of impossible odds. Their spirit was a flame that no darkness could ever extinguish, a force that changed the course of the stars forever. As the sun rose higher, the world seemed to breathe new life and promise. General Arya stood beside Tarvik, her gaze steady and filled with quiet determination. She spoke softly, words that carried the weight of all they had endured and all they would face. Remember, she said, never forget why you fight and who you fight for this land, for these people, for the light that guides us through the darkest night. The horizon stretched endless and full of possibility, a canvas for the stories yet to be written by the hands of those who dared to dream and to build. The war was a chapter closed, but the book of humanity was just beginning, and its pages would be filled with hope, courage, and love. In this moment of peace, the world found its true strength not in weapons or conquest, but in the hearts of its people, in their unbreakable will to live, to love, and to rise again no matter the storm. Then